Hello ladies and gents, I'm the Beanie 101 and I'm bringing you some XCOM Enemy Within. Today I'm going to be discussing gene modifications and what my thoughts are on all of the gene mods available in game, what situations they're beneficial in, what type of troopers benefit most from certain gene modifications, and also the cost benefit of meld and credits for each of the skills. So first up is neural damping. This gives you plus 20 will when defending against psi attacks, immunity to panic, and it cancels any mind control. You get stunned instead. This is a really good skill for that one trooper that you have in your squad that has will much lower than everybody else. Especially by the time you get to psi attacks, which is relatively late on in the game, you're always going to have that one trooper that has use of this particular skill. Next up is neural feedback. It's actually slightly cheaper. It's only 10 meld and 35 credits. This means that you cause damage to anyone that's trying to psi attack you, and it puts their psi attacks, all of them, every single one, on cooldown. It doesn't reduce the chance of success, so this I think is an overall slightly better skill. It's something that you can use on the majority of your troops that have high will. I like certainly going for the neural feedback option. Depth perception is up next. That is where you get a plus 5 aim and plus 5 critical chance when you have a height advantage. So which classes are going to benefit from a height advantage naturally anyway? Certainly snipers and maybe heavies, and heavies could do with the additional aim, so it's a useful skill to have for those kind of troops. It's dirt cheap. Hyperactive pupils is the same price of 5 meld and 15 credits, plus 10 aim on any shot that you miss. Think about the situations where you might use this. The classes that naturally have lower aim are your heavies and your assault classes, so it's useful for them. Depth perception may be more beneficial overall to pretty much any class. I mean, to be perfectly honest, both of these skills are useful in certain situations. They only provide small buffs either way, so the choice is yours really. It's a really cheap buff. You get access to it early on in the game, so why not? Secondary heart is 15 meld and it's 75 credits, so relatively expensive. This means that you will bleed out instead of dying. And the bleed out time is extended by 2 turns. This is the type of skill that you give to that one troop, that one trooper that you really cannot afford to lose. Someone that you may have grown particularly attached to, maybe your highest ranked official. It really doesn't matter. If you have a trooper that you really don't want to die, you probably want to use the secondary heart skill. I don't use it too much, mainly because I don't plan on dying, and also because I actually like neurosympathy. I think it's a better use of meld, it's a better use of credits. This gives a buff to absolutely everybody when you kill somebody, provided they're line of sight. So anyone hiding behind walls or anything like that aren't going to get the benefit, but the range is actually surprisingly big. It grants a bonus to, I believe, will, to aim, to critical chance. So if you like to keep your troops relatively tightly knit and close together, this is a skill that's going to benefit quite a few of them, to be perfectly honest. I like to use it on assault classes and on support classes. The support class particularly because I know that the support class is there to provide buffs to my troops anyway. They generally have smoke, they generally have medkits, they're there as a support function, so why not give them adrenal neurosympathy to further boost their ability to buff your troopers. I really like the buff. It's really useful, and it can be triggered if you have multiple troopers with this. It could be triggered with enormous regularity actually. Every time you kill something, someone's going to get a buff of this skill, so I like it. I like it a lot. Moving on to the skin modifications. Bioelectric skin gives you immunity to strangulation. It also seeks out troopers which are not in line of sight, that are nearby, so mainly useful for uncovering cloaked enemies like seekers. I think it works if you've got that one thin man that's snuck behind a corner waiting in Overwatch for you. You get that spidey sense that's tingling and you get sight of those troops, so it's a useful skill. The problem with bioelectric skin is it has to compete with the modification that's probably the strongest modification in the game, and that is mimetic skin. Now, what I will say about mimetic skin is if you are playing an unpatched game, if you are playing offline and your Xbox or your PS3 or your PC doesn't ask you to patch the game, this skill is much cheaper in terms of both meld and in terms of both credit cost. It's the most expensive skill for a reason. 65 meld, 150 credits, that can get you a pretty decent mech. Now what this does is it enables you to cloak automatically when you go into high cover. It's also useful if you have like a snapshot sniper that has the ability that means that half cover counts as full cover. This is great. You can get into any cover whatsoever, and so long as the enemy doesn't see where you've come from, i.e. they haven't got line of sight when you start your turn, you're going to be cloaked no matter what. So it allows a great degree of maneuverability around the battlefield and around the map. I like to use this on support classes, just because with the sprint ability it enables them to scout ahead. It's also useful on assault classes if you want to get stuck right into the middle of a pack of aliens and then unleash hell with your shotgun. Really good way of utilising it. The one thing that I will say about being mindful of mimetic skin is you do have to be careful about your use of Overwatch and any sort of abilities which trigger reactionary fire. So your assault abilities which trigger reactionary fire, some of the support abilities which trigger covering fire, I think it is, and any sort of Overwatch, you want to be careful, because if you have any reactionary shot, then you're going to break cover, you're going to be visible, and usually you're going to want to stay cloaked, because the amount of times where I have moved up the battlefield into full cover to trigger a group of enemies and they're standing right bloody next to me, I really do not want to uncloak my trooper via some sort of reactionary fire shot when potentially they're going to be miles ahead of the rest of my troops because they've gone scouting out ahead. The ability for those troops to then provide support for that soldier is going to be minimised. So be careful with your use of Overwatch if you've got mimetic skin, but it's really useful in a variety of situations. Support classes, assault classes, and your snapshot snipers, really useful skill. I would recommend that you have at least one trooper that has mimetic skin at some point in your playthrough. Personally, I think the support benefits from it most, but the choice is yours. It really is yours. After you've got one trooper with mimetic skin, really it depends how you want to utilise the rest of your meld. If you haven't got any mechs, then by all means blow the extra 65 that you may need for an additional trooper with mimetic skin and go from there. Now, moving on to the leg modifications. Adaptive bone marrow. This sounds really good on paper. In practice, I'm going to tell you up front, I think it's rubbish. Wound recovery time is reduced by 66%. Fine, but late on in the game, I'm planning not on getting hit, and it means that the soldier also regenerates 2 HP per turn up to the HP max without armor. Without armor is the key thing to note here. If you have armor, or any sort of decent armor, which later on in the game you're probably going to have, the armor is going to absorb much of the damage, so you're not going to be in the medbay anyway, and because you haven't taken any damage to your HP, it's not going to trigger any form of recovery. Early on in the game, adaptive bone marrow is useful. Mid to late game, it's almost useless. So I would use muscle fiber density if I'm going for any form of leg modification, and it's 25 meld, 60 credits, so relatively expensive. With secondary heart, mimetic skin, and muscle fiber density, those are some of the more expensive skills that you're going to have, but those sort of credits later on in the game, it's still relatively easy to amass those sort of funds. You're probably going to be running out of meld more than anything else. You certainly have a vast array of credits at your disposal if you utilise the grey market properly. Muscle fiber density means that you can go up levels without the use of ladders or pipes, so anyone that's going to benefit from rooftops, like snipers, potentially like heavies, this is going to be a resourceful skill that you can put effect on that particular trooper. I also like to add it on my supports because they have increased maneuverability anyway, and the ability to leap up multiple floors just increases their flexibility and increases the amount that they can move. Muscle fiber density combined with mimetic skin means that your support is probably able to bounce around the battlefield to their heart's content, and you're going to cause devastation. So anyway, those are my thoughts overall on the gene modifications that are available for XCOM Enemy Within. Let me know what you think in the comments below. The explanation that I've given is far from exhaustive. Many people are going to disagree or have different ways of utilising these skills, so I'll be keen to hear about them. Don't forget to look at some of my other class guides for XCOM Enemy Within. Hit that subscribe button if you like my content. There's a Let's Play of XCOM going on as well. And thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.